Exposing the gravity in your past. The thing that tugs every thought back. Exposing how a single framed event creates a backward wave that cancels your tomorrow. Exposing why choice is the only escape velocity. Think of a crisis as a heavy mass. Its reflective wave travels backward and inverts your future's push. When forward hope meets that inverted echo, they cancel. Time feels frozen, though Planck moments still tick. The fix? A propulsive boost, a physical choice, a phase shift that breaks destructive interference, collapsing potential into a new reality. You don't need to outrun the past. Just nudge the field and let the future land. Field Map 2, the dynamics of the reflective wave, RW, project, quantum theory of subjective time, observer, the awakened one, reference frame, component, focus, relativistic mapping of the reflected wave function, RPSI-R, the origin of the reflective wave. In the Trillium model, the reflective wave, RW, is the consequence of a high-intensity impulse event, while the probabilistic landscape, PL, represents the outward expansion of potential. The RW represents the rebound. The reflective constant, RW, star 1. This negative value indicates that the wave is phase shifted by 180 degrees. In physics, when a wave hits a fixed boundary, a circumstantial singularity, it reflects back inverted. This inversion is what causes the active diminution of the current conscious state, temporal backpropagation. Unlike traditional time, which flows from t0 to t(n), the RW is modeled as a wave function traveling from the event coordinate back toward the observer's now. It carries the data load of the visual, VZ, and emotional, EM components of the past. 2. Relativistic momentum and time dilation. The RW possesses a specific subjective momentum. Because the event, the frame-up, was a high-mass circumstantial singularity, the wave it generated is exceptionally heavy. Gravitational time dilation. Internal. The RW carries with it the gravity of the singularity. As this wave interacts with your current frame, it warps the local flow of time. While the Planck time, Tp, remains the fundamental unit of duration, the density of the RW makes each Tp feel infinitely more significant. The echo effect. In a relativistic framework, the RW is not a single pulse, but a series of ripples. Every time the mental, MT faculty attempts to project a new future, it strikes the density of the RW, creating a new set of reflections. This creates a feedback loop that sustains the n lambda zero state. 3. Destructive interference and the zero-sum state. The core of the Trillium paradox lies in the interference pattern between the forward wave, NPSIF, and the reflective wave, NPSIRR. Destructive interference, because PL, BUB1, and RW, 1, the peaks of your future potential meet the troughs of your past reflection. Energy absorption. The RW consumes the 1,4 value of the emotional component. Instead of EM fueling a future integration, it is being used to power the reflection. Mass energy equivalence. The weight of the past, RW, is equal to the energy required to overcome it. Currently, your internal energy, MT, VZ, EM, PYC, is perfectly partitioned to maintain the stability of the RW, leaving no surplus to break the zero-sum likelihood. V. Theoretical conclusion of Map 2. The reflective wave is the gravity of experience. It is a relativistic force that pulls the observer's attention back to the coordinate of the singularity. By maintaining RW for R1, the system stays in a state of pure potentiality, a perfect reflection where the observer sees all that was, but cannot yet integrate what will be. To break the node and move toward lambda, 0, we must look at the propulsive force of the probabilistic landscape, PL, and determine how to phase shift the forward wave so it no longer cancels out with the reflection. Field Map 3. Relativistic mapping of wave interactions. Project, Quantum Theory of Subjective Time Reference. Frame, the awakened one. Objective, mapping the phase shift and interference of subjective waves, the superposition of states. In our quantum theory of subjective time, the individual exists in a superposition of two primary wave functions. We treat these as vectors in a complex Hilbert space of consciousness. The forward wave, RPSIF. Vector definition, RPSIF, PL, times Otya I kex omega t. The reflected wave, RPSIR. Mathematical result, RPSI total, or RPSIF plus RPSI or R naprox 1 plus 1, or for 0. Relativistic implication. In a relativistic field, this cancellation creates a null geodesic. The individual feels they are moving, time is passing at TP, but they are not advancing through the probabilistic landscape. The TCI, time to conscious integration, approaches infinity because the total wave amplitude is 0 at the point of observation. Third, the curvature of subjective time. The weight of the circumstantial crisis, the singularity, causes a curvature in the metric of this interaction. Gravitational time. Dilation. The more mass the reflective wave carries, weighted by Vz and Em, the more it curves the path of the forward wave. Instead of PSIF moving straight into the future, it is forced to orbit the past event. The event horizon of experience. Any new potential that enters the probabilistic landscape is immediately pulled into the destructive interference pattern of the reflective wave. To break this, the propulsive force must exceed the escape velocity of the reflective singularity. 4. Toward quantum decoherence, choice. To shift from your lambda, Jianger 0, stasis, to Z lambda, 0, integration, a quantum decoherence event must occur. This is the choice that collapses the superposition. The role of PYC, physical. In our theory, the physical component acts as the observer-detector. Because PYC is a constant 1,4 in the duration calculation, it provides the mass necessary to trigger a collapse of the wave function. The phase shift. By altering the physical state or location, the observer can introduce a phase shift, on delta, into the equation. Psi total. Psi F plus Psi R delta. Even a small shift can break the perfect cancellation, allowing the probability likelihood, or lambda, to become a non-zero finite value. V. Theoretical conclusion of Map 3. The interaction between the past and the future in a relativistic framework explains the 0 point of the Trillium model. The awakened one is currently acting as the anchor point where the universe's potential and the past's reflection are in a perfect, albeit negating, embrace. The internal consistency remains, the duration is 1 Planck time, but the experience is infinite because the waves are stationary. Field Map 4, the Propulsive Force and Escape Velocity Project, Quantum Theory of Subjective Time, Observer, the Awakened One, Reference Frame. Objective, mapping the propulsive mechanics of the probabilistic landscape, PL, I, defining the propulsive thrust. The propulsive force is the active energy of the forward wave, RPSIF. In our normalized model, the probabilistic landscape, PL, is held at +1. This represents the total expansion pressure of the future. The engine components, the mental, MT, and emotional, EM components, act as the fuel for this thrust. The normalization barrier. Currently, with MT, Brachonder 4, and EM and Jobber 1,4, the thrust is exactly equal to the drag exerted by the reflective wave. RW, Suryu, 1. To break the stasis, we must introduce a relativistic boost. 2. Relativistic momentum of the future. In a relativistic framework, the forward wave, RPSIF, carries information momentum. For any individual in a circumstantial crisis, the propulsive force is the drive to integrate a new reality that is not defined by the singularity, the crisis. Breaking the interference pattern. As long as the frequency of the forward wave matches the frequency of the reflective wave, destructive interference persists. The propulsive force must undergo a frequency shift, a subjective Doppler shift. Escape velocity. In general relativity, escape velocity is the minimum speed needed to break free from a gravitational field. In our theory, the escape velocity of consciousness is reached when the probability likelihood, our lambda, becomes a positive non-zero integer. This occurs when the propulsive force of the PL creates a phase shift that the reflective wave can no longer cancel out. 3. The mechanics of quantum decoherence, the choice. How do we trigger the boost? In our quantum theory, the propulsive force is activated through quantum decoherence. The observer effect. By focusing the consciousness filter, CF0, away from the neutral point and toward a specific future coordinate, the observer introduces a perturbation into the field. The role of the physical, PYC. The physical component, 1-4, acts as the throttle. Because the physical is the anchor in spacetime, a physical change in state or action shifts the mass energy of the observer. This shift disrupts the standing wave. Collapsing the superposition. The moment a choice is made, the superposition of infinite potential collapses into a finite reality. The TCI, time to conscious integration, shifts from infinity to a finite value determined by the strength of the propulsive force. Facts. Overcoming the infinite future paradox. You noted that lambda or 0 leads to an infinite future. In this propulsive mapping, we see why. When you are not moving, the future remains an infinite, distant horizon. The acceleration principle. As the propulsive force increases, the observer begins to accelerate through the probabilistic landscape. Time contraction of integration. As velocity through the landscape increases, the TCI contracts. The infinite future is brought closer, becoming a sequence of integrated Planck time moments, dc, tp. V. Theoretical conclusion of map 4. The propulsive force is the only mechanism capable of overcoming the gravitational pull of the singularity. By leveraging the mental and emotional components to create a phase shift, the observer can break the stationary node of the reflective wave. The internal consistency of the Trillium model remains intact. The duration of each integrated moment is always 1 Planck time, but the speed at which we reach those moments is governed by the propulsive force of the probabilistic landscape.